Hey everybody, Pete with Optics for Birding here again. Today I'm going to be bringing you a comparison between three different Nikon binoculars that are probably our best sellers. Thank you so much to everybody who's been watching our channel so far. We've gotten a lot of great feedback, and one of the most common bits of feedback that we get is that a lot of our videos so far have been really, skewed towards the high-end products that we sell. So we've had a lot of requests for some of the more entry-level, kind of mid-range binoculars that we carry. So that's what we're bringing you today. So today I've got the Nikon Monarch M5, the Nikon Monarch M7, and their Monarch HG, which is their top of the line. I'm just going to try to give you the breakdown between all three lines, give you all the features and the pros and cons of each, and hopefully convince you to move up the ladder if you think that might be worth it for you. So these are some of the best binoculars that we carry in their respective price points. The M5 being at $300, the M7 being right around 500, and the Monarch HG being all the way up at 1,000. So today we're going to get into all the nuts and bolts. Let's do it. All right, so let's start at the lower end. So again, I've got the Monarch M5 here. These are all going to be 8x42 binoculars just to keep it apples to apples. But I've got the Monarch M5 and the Monarch M7. So there's a $200 difference between these, and I want to help you understand why. The first and the very obvious thing about these is that it's even written on the focus wheel. These guys have a 6.4 degree field of view. The Monarch M7, on the other hand, one of the things that you pay for, the main reason that people jump up to this is that you have an 8.3 degree field of view, which is much, much wider. When you compare these two side by side, it almost feels like this one gives you tunnel vision compared to this. And in general, I do tend to think that field of view is a little bit overrated. A lot of people get hung up about like little differences that they see on paper when it comes to field of view of like, 0.2 degrees, which is not very much. But when you're talking almost 2 full degrees, picture yourself having horse blinders on and you only get this little tiny cone of light to look through. If you widen that from, 6.4 degrees all the way up to 8.3, you do definitely get a more panoramic picture. You can see more moving objects, moving birds, whatever it is. You can follow things more easily. Like having a nice wider field of view is always something that's better to have if you can get it. So that is, on paper, it's the most obvious difference and very much worth the jump, in my opinion, to go up to the Monarch M7 if it's within your budget. These both, I think, have the same overall like build quality. One of them doesn't have like a better housing material or durability than the other, but there is one key difference there when it comes to the optical system. So the coating on the outside of the M7 is a little bit more oil and water repellent. So in Nikon spec sheet, they say that like the Monarch M7 has an oil and a dirt repellent coating, and the M5 does not. So that means that in general, like this is just going to be built for the outdoors a little bit more. If you drop it in a puddle, or if you're getting dust kicked up or you're walking around, if it's raining, that kind of thing, the M7 is just going to perform a little bit better and keep the lenses clean. So that's another key difference. Another thing, which I really think is the most overrated feature in the universe, but while I'm in this area, I have to point it out. The diopter adjustment on the M7 is something that locks in place. So, when you're doing the diopter adjustment, if you have to balance the difference in your prescription for your left and right eye, and you twist that, you're going to be able to lock it in place so that it can't get knocked out of alignment by accident. I think that happens super rarely anyway. I don't think that's really a reason at all to jump up, but they had to throw something in there to justify the price increase, right? So that is another difference that justifies the $200 difference. And other than that, pretty much same binocular top to bottom. So the glass quality, they're both using ED glass. I don't think that there's like a giant leap in the sharpness or anything. Even though they're both spec'd out to say that they have ED glass from Nikon, though, I do see a little bit less chromatic aberration when I try the M7. So I don't think on paper you would get that impression because they're both saying that they're using the same glass type. But to me, like when I look at high contrast objects, if I'm really looking for chromatic aberration, I do see it more in the M5. But that's usually something that you can expect for a $200 difference, right? So that, those I think are the main differences between the two. Always, 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 I recommend getting the best thing that you can afford. So if you're on the fence between the two, but it's within your budget, having that wider field of view, better, weather resistance, having a little bit less chromatic aberration, it's going to pay off a lot in the long run because you're going to be able to focus more on whatever you're looking at. You're going to have less distraction in your periphery, and you're going to have more peripheral vision. So that's the M5 versus the M7. Now we can move on to the top dog, Monarch HG. All right, so the country of manufacture does come into play here a little bit, right? A lot of people want to avoid Chinese manufacturing if they can. Both the Monarch M5 and the M7 are made in China. It's very, very rare for us to see binoculars at the $500 price point and below not made in China without being really low quality. It's just kind of the nature of the game now. We would all love to avoid that if we can, but the reality is it's really expensive. So if it's within your budget, the Monarch HG is going to be made in Japan. On top of that, it is really a better binocular top to bottom than these other two guys, as you would expect for double the price. So the field of view in this case is almost the same. In fact, on both focus wheels, it does say that it's 8.3 degrees, right? So you're going to get basically the same coverage when you're talking about scanning around, when you're talking about how much you can see at once. The field of view is going to be equal in both of these. That said, one huge benefit that you get with the Monarch HG, number one, is that even though the glass type is the same, you get more pieces of glass inside the binocular to give you, better chromatic aberration reduction. You get less spherical aberrations because of those additional lenses. And what that translates to in practice is just a much clearer, much sharper image. So even when we have novices in the store with us, like if they compare a binocular at 500 to 1,000, sometimes they can see the difference. Most of the time, they're like, yeah, I can see the difference, but it's not night and day. In this particular case, I really do think it is. So this jump I think is absolutely justified, because when you're paying double the price for a binocular, you want to get a much nicer image, right? So the glass quality, even though the actual individual pieces of lenses are technically the same on paper because they're ED glass, in Nikon's case, I'm sure that they're using extra lenses. They don't give us like schematics and things to look under the hood with, but that has to be taking place because otherwise they wouldn't be able to correct for the chromatic aberration more without doing that. On top of that, another thing that they really bolster in these is the lens coatings. So you get much higher light transmission. They don't actually publish the light transmission rates for these guys, but my educated guess is it's going to be in the high 80%. With the Monarch HG, you get 92% light transmission, which is something that you commonly will only find on the very top of binoculars. The benefit of that basically means that you're going to be able to see much more clearly in lower light conditions. So if you have very little light available, dawn and dusk, stargazing, that kind of thing, you're going to get a brighter image because you're getting more of that light through to your eye. On top of that, this is not something that you would really get within a spec sheet, but I do feel like the coloration, the contrast in the Monarch HGs is much nicer than either of these other two binoculars. So you get, much more vivid reds, blues, greens. You get better contrast between those colors. That's just strictly my observation. That's not something that Nikon publishes. But another key difference with this guy is that you get a field flattening lens. And again, that could be another overrated feature that people get hung up on. Edge to edge sharpness is a little bit more in vogue than it should be these days. But as a birder, one thing that I do pay attention to a lot is if I'm following a bird in a tree, especially like a bare tree with no leaves, and I've got the plain blue or the plain white sky in the background, it gets really distracting for me if I have branches in my peripheral vision that have like a purple or green outline because of the chromatic aberration. So a field flattening lens can not only give you less distortion at the edges, but it gives you less chromatic aberration too. And that's definitely, I think, a noticeable difference between the Monarch HG and the other two here. You just get the ability to focus on a bird that you're looking at a little bit more because you're not getting distracted by those peripheral chromatic aberrations that you would see on these other two. So if you are looking in that $1,000 range and you think that's comfortable for you, this is absolutely one of the best candidates, I think. Another reason that you might consider paying that much is that this guy has a magnesium alloy body. And, when we're using these things outdoors, it's nice to have something that's really durable and easy to handle. So with the magnesium alloy, what you get compared to the aluminum alloy bodies that these guys have, you get more durability and you get lighter weight. So like I said, this one is going to have some additional lenses in there. I mean, we know for sure that it has an extra lens in there because of the field flattener, right, and the eyepiece. But I strongly believe that this has to have some extra lenses in the objective as well, and in the eyepiece to give you that better, aberration-free image. So what does more pieces of glass mean? It means you're going to increase the weight. So to offset that a little bit, they use that magnesium alloy body, which reduces the weight, but you kind of get the best of both worlds because it also gives you a more durable binocular, more temperature resistant. So if you take it to Antarctica and then go to Death Valley, you're not going to be as worried about this thing failing on you. So at least a mechanical failure. So that I think I've covered most of the important features of these things. Like there are other little tidbits, in terms of the body texture and the focusing wheel. I don't want to get into those as much because I think those are much more personal preference based than an objective review. But hopefully that gives you an understanding of why Nikon has these binoculars priced where they are. So just to give you the full rundown again, let's break down all the nuts and bolts. All right, so one more time, just a quick recap. Starting at the $300 level with the Monarch M5, you do get ED glass. You get a very nice, I think, durable, well-built binocular for that price point. Um, the next jump up to the Monarch M7, you get a much wider field of view by almost 2 full degrees. You get better oil and dirt repellent coatings on the exteriors of the lenses, so it's a little bit more outdoor capable. On top of that, and this part is strictly my observation, but I think there is less chromatic aberration in the M7 than the M5. So one more time, that's a $200 difference. I think that that's more than worth it. Jumping up again from their mid-range to their high-end model, we've got the Monarch M7 in the middle, got the Monarch HD at the top. I think this has a night and day, much clearer, much nicer image. You get not only that better perceived glass quality, but you get much higher light transmission. So you get 92% over the probably, 88, 89% that you get in these guys. So you get much better low light performance, much better contrast, much better color fidelity, for lack of a better term. On top of that, you get the field flattening lens that gives you the better pristine image all across the field of view, and you get the more durable design with the magnesium housing. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have any other questions, please drop us a comment below, reach out to us on social media, or just visit our website, opticsforbirding.com. You can also always give us a call at 877-674-2473, and we're here to help you. Thanks so much.